Today is going to be an episode for people that want to start a podcast. I'm going to be running you through all the different microphone options that you could be using, starting with the cheapest, most piece of shit mics you could probably get, all the way up to broadcast quality stuff that most podcasts use. And you'll be able to find all the links to those in the description below, and they might even pop up during the video as I'm talking about them. Also, happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of all the Black Friday deals depending on when you see this or whenever it pops up. But before I get into some mics, let's thank the executive producer of this episode, Stoned Ape Canico. If it wasn't for Stoned Ape Canico's big baller support, I'd probably be either buying or acquiring for free a whole bunch of broken new iPhones. And then I would just buy a new one online and I would just kind of switch them out, return the broken one, and then I'd have the new one, selling that too. We call that the old school hot swap double dip. But thanks to Stoned Ape Canico's big baller support, I don't have to do that. And if you'd like to become a big baller supporter of the show, you can go ahead and click the Patreon link in the description below. Welcome to Catching You Up with
Nadav. It's so great.
So we're going to be running through all the different microphones that you could consider before starting a podcast. I'm going to run you through all the microphones that I've personally used. I highly encourage you to use the links in the description below. But audio-wise, you need a microphone, you need XLR cables, and then you need those to plug into something that you're recording it on. That's the basic workflow. If you ask me, if you're doing a podcast, it needs to be on video, but we're getting ahead of ourselves because what you need better than a good-looking camera is good audio. Good audio needs to be the priority of your podcast. So let's start off with some of the cheaper things that you could buy that still kind of get the job done depending on what you're trying to do. If all you're looking for is a microphone to just improve the audio quality of your Zoom meetings or something for you to use for your Twitch streams while you game, you could just type in podcast microphone or something into Amazon. It'll give you a whole bunch of options I personally have never heard of. But when COVID started in 2020, I remember I started a Twitch stream and I was like, well, damn, I need a better microphone than the one that comes built in with my laptop. And what I ended up getting was this blue Snowball. It comes with a USB plug in the back. It plugs right into your computer and you don't need to think too much about it. It's kind of just plug and play. And that microphone will run you somewhere between 30 and 50 bucks. Here's an example of what that sounded like. Here's a clip from one of my streams. You want to suck my dick? You're going to have to suck it through my asshole, dude. Is it good enough? Sure. And not only that, but since it's a USB microphone, it just plugs in straight to the back of your computer. And you kind of eliminate the need for a mixer like this, which, although is very useful, can kind of complicate things if you're not a tech person or a production person. And look, is this the best microphone that you can get for your shit? No, but it's better than your laptop microphones. What if you're trying to get to phase 2? Like, I want to get like a slightly better one. And look, I'm not sponsored by Shure, the company that makes a lot of these microphones, but I will say that a lot of their mics are super dependable. Now look, this microphone is great, but like I said, all you have is kind of a USB plug on the back of it, and when you're ready for phase 2, you're going to want a microphone that takes one of these bad boys. It's an XLR cable, and what it does is that it connects microphones into other audio type of equipment or wherever you need to go to. But this is what you get to get audio devices to talk to each other. So once you graduate from USB cable mics to XLR cable mics, what you'll see is probably the SM58, which if you look at it and you paint it red, those are pretty much the Kill Tony mics. Those are kind of the standard for on-stage mics, and that's because they're pretty indestructible. And on the podcast, you and your guest can either hold those like this, but if you don't have good hand control, it'll start sounding a little off like this, and then sometimes you'll be in front of the microphone, and then other times you won't, and there's just a whole bunch of control, which is where something like a mic stand comes handy, where you can just leave it there like that and just know to always talk into the microphone like this. So the SM58, depending on which variant of it you get, will run you somewhere between 100 and 200 something bucks. And they're fine. And so what I'll do is in the description below, I'll have a section just for microphones, a section just for stands, and then maybe some bundles too that might help you out. And on this Black Friday, it sure will help to get all of those right now all at once. But look, you're tired of the SM58, you still like the mic stand, so what is the next level up microphone from that I would recommend? It would actually be what I'm using right now, which is the Shure MV7 or MV7 Plus or whatever's in that family. And I'm sure it all has slightly different variances in that. All of that, I don't really care about. I just know that this guy fucking rules. And this microphone will run you somewhere between $200 and $300, depending if you get it refurbished or brand new. But take a look at this beauty. And I know you might be thinking like, man, this looks really familiar. Yeah, it looks a lot like its predecessor, also made by Shure. Which is the SM7B, which is the microphone you see on most podcasts. And the SM7B, believe it or not, has been around since the 70s. And Nadav, what is the difference between the MV7 and the SM7B? This guy's newer and slightly smaller, and the SM7B is bigger and more expensive. But this nerd on B&H Photo named Nicholas Masite, he did some recordings that kind of compare and contrast it. I will let you listen to it unedited just so you can see for yourself what the actual difference is like, but here's what the SM7B sounds like.
This is Nick Masite talking into a Shure SM7B microphone. I am about 4 inches away from the capsule, and the microphone is feeding an API preamp 3124, which is in turn feeding a head 192 converter.
Here's what the MV7 sounds like.
This is Nick Masite speaking into the Shure MV7 microphone analog output going into the API 3124 into a head 192. I have the gain down quite a bit compared to the other one. I'm about the same distance from the mic, and this is what it sounds like.
Just from hearing those two samples, you can hear that the SM7B kind of has a fuller, warmer, richer sound, but at the same time, it's like, I can tell the difference when you put those things head to head, but if I just listen to the MV7 on its own, like what I'm talking into right now, I would not call it unlistenable. You put it side by side, sure, the SM7B might sound better, but for $200 cheaper, or however much cheaper it is, the MV7 might be the way to go. And here's another thing that I kind of really like about the MV7 is, I can kind of show it. So it has the XLR input right here, but it also has the USB in the back of it too. The SM7B only has the XLR output, while this guy has headphone jack, USB, and XLR output, so that you can really just use any which way to get this audio signal to where you want it to go. You could call it a lot more diverse. There's a lot more different situations that you could put this guy in, the MV7, but the SM7B does sound better. The differences between them aren't negligent, but there aren't anything that I would personally notice where I'm like, geez, that audio fucking sucks. But here is what I dislike about both the MV7 and the SM7B, and that's that this casing that you're seeing it in, this is the shock mount. A shock mount is something that you connect your microphone to that then connects to the mic arm, so that when you do hit the mic arm like this, normally the shock mount is supposed to be able to absorb that and keep any of those vibrations going into the microphone. They're saying that it already has a natural shock mount, but I don't know. You can kind of hear that, can't you? So if you're already going for the SM7B, which is somewhere between $400 and $500, and it really bothers you that you can't put a shock mount onto it, because believe me, I've done a lot of research, and even though I'm terrible at Googling, I haven't found anything that would act as a shock mount for this microphone that wouldn't just make it look completely ridiculous. Which, in my opinion, where the Electro-Voice RE20 comes in. Now, this part is the actual microphone, but all of this shit, all this rubber suspension thing that it's on, that is the shock mount. And that's what prevents it from being able to get fucked with too hard. So let's do a quick experiment. Let's unplug, now I'm probably going to regret the shit out of this, but let's unplug this guy and plug it into the RE20. And now here is the RE20. So we have this guy, and look, I'm hitting it all over, could barely, I'm hitting the bottom of it. There's so much, there's so much that you could do with this, and it's not going to hit it because everything that is touching the mic is being suspended by rubber or bungee cables so that any vibrations aren't traveling up the mic arms. They're just being absorbed by the shock mount, which is what a shock mount's supposed to do. You can't decide what shock mount to put on this, which sucks. This is a great microphone. So is this. I don't know, just giving you options. If you want this and the shock mount, I'll have that in the YouTube description as well. But there's just so many options. So if you ask me, those are all the real options that you should be utilizing when doing a podcast. There are some podcasts that also use wireless microphones. But if you're watching a video like this, trying to decide which microphone you should use, I'm going to go ahead and tell you to stay the fuck away from wireless mics. It could be rubbing up against something the entire time and you won't notice until you listen to the audio afterwards. You're going to need like an audio person to monitor it throughout all, and you're also going to need like backup audio sources like boom mics to be pointed at you so that if one of these mics fails or it has a ruffle in the middle of a keyword, you can switch to one of the other microphones. The whole entire thing just becomes a clusterfuck and a headache, and you have to do so much work to make sure that it doesn't crap out on you. And even if it does crap out on you, you now just resort to a shittier microphone to cover your tracks for when it didn't work. But look, we just talked about microphones for this episode, and although there's a lot of different options to pick from in terms of super shitty to a lot less super shitty, that's just one part of like 4 or 5 parts of being able to record audio in a safe and good way. And if all of that sounds really complicated to you and you don't want to figure that all out, it turns out I am a consultant and you can hire me to figure that out for you for your specific situation by emailing me at verynadavshow@gmail.com. Boy, what a fun and super technical Thanksgiving episode for people that are at home with their families just wondering to know the difference between all the different microphones and which one they should choose for their new podcast that they're launching at the beginning of the year. And before I sign off, I'd like to thank everyone that you're seeing on screen right now. Without their continued support and help, it'd be much harder to put out all of these videos that you're seeing at a consistent, regular level. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter of this show, you can go ahead and hit the Patreon link in the description below. And most importantly, I'd like to remind all of you that
This is a totally unconfirmed news.
All right, the timing on that could have been a little bit better, but we're not fixing that in post. That's staying in. Thank you for watching another episode of Catching You Up with
Nadav, it's okay, die.
Good enough. And we'll see you next week. Happy Thanksgiving.